And it's time for our In the Turn interview, sponsored by Distinctive Auto Body. Born in Westfield, Mass. in January 1961, he has run NASCAR-sanctioned Busch North Series, now the ARCA Menards, NASCAR Xfinity, and I believe soon he will be running a Truck Series race or two. He has also run AMA Superbikes, the Rolex sports cars, modifieds, NASCAR Euros, and of course he has ties to the South Shore here in Massachusetts. We are happy to be joined by Dale Quarterley. Dale, welcome to the show.
How are you tonight?
Wonderful, wonderful. So we're definitely going to touch on all of that and, get right into things.
A lot of touching.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot to reach in here in about 20 minutes, but let's jump right into things. First off, how'd you get the racing bug, Dale?
As most people know, I grew up in Rockland, Hanover area, so we still have a camper down in Brent Rock right there. Speaking of all this, if you guys can call Ming Dynasty and order me a poo-poo platter, it'd be awesome.
Yes.
Call it in right now.
Very good.
We might go to the Ming afterwards after that recommendation.
Yeah, it's good for you guys. So, so I grew up. My father owned a go-kart mini-bike shop in Abington called Karting Sales, and then at the end it was he turned it into a used car lot, Herb Quarterley Motors, that we were there 30 years. So that's where I got the bug. I raced with my buddy Van Gilder for years, which was kind of funny that he's what I call my sensei. So even today, if I'm struggling with a problem, he's who I call up and ask. So it's kind of cool that things that happened back then come around again today.
So let's talk a little bit about your, you really did mention it there, but your ties to the South Shore here. What does the South Shore mean to you?
Well, I mean, it's home, right? It's everything. There's, you had in Hanover, you had Spooner Cycles. So I went to school with his daughter, Sherry Spooner, and which we still, chit-chat on Facebook. You had, Rick Clary. His father was a famous NASCAR guy in the,
Bugsy,
East Coast, Seekonk, Waterford, all those places. We went to school with him. His kid runs now. So it's kind of cool that you've got second and third generations running. My son, Alex, has been running some. So it's kind of cool to take the air and, bring it forward.
Absolutely.
Hey, Dale, this is Paul here. Hey, so I'm a bit of a local racer myself. I've been racing probably the same local tracks you've been racing. I've been doing it for like 35 years. Yeah. And I remember when you first started racing down in Seekonk. And to us I was only an auto racer guy. You were a bike guy. You bike guys are a little crazier than us. And I always looked at it and say, hey, this guy's crazy. And then you show up at Seekonk with a green car. And as you know, green is like taboo for the old school motorsports guys. And that just
sponsored though.
Yeah. No, the Ninja Turtle sponsored car. Yep. And to me, that just built up your legend, because I looked at it and said, man, this guy's real crazy because he's got a green car. What was that like at Seekonk? Because I heard back in the day nobody wanted to pit next to you because you had a green car.
So I'm not sure much had to do with the green car as the way I drove it.
I heard that too, Dale.
McKenna, at the time, which was funny because John McKenna was the same gentleman I drove for when I won the modified race at Lime Rock. Fast forward 15, 18 years. So who gave me my first ride is who I won the modified with late in the time. And the funny part about it was, when I got the ride to run the Pro Stock at Seekonk, I had said to him, listen to me, whatever I do, I usually only do it once wrong. And I learned my lesson, and we move on. And I'm telling you, within a couple of years, we'll be running the Busch North deal. And he's giving me the, yeah, whatever. I've heard this story 1,000 times. So since then, we were one of the top Busch North teams. We won the modified race. I'm still running up front. We still just came back from Daytona. I mean, life is still good. And what's that? 30 years now we've been doing it. but it all came from Seekonk.
So
I'll tell you one good Seekonk story.
Yeah, go ahead.
Seekonk story is. So I spin this guy out, and we get in the pits because they want to beat you up. So they're all over in our pit, and we're trying to fend for ourselves. And they're screaming at us about spinning them out. And, of course, I'm trying to say calmly, hey, I didn't spin you out. You spun yourself out. You can't get loose off a 2, go up the racetrack, and expect to come back down. By the time you come back down, I've already filled a hole, and you keep turning the wheel. I just kept going. You spun out across the dash, you went in the infield, I kept going. I said, and I'm going to tell you, it's going to happen next week and the week after. I'm not lifting because you got loose going up off 2. So John comes over the very next week and says, I thought you said you were going to learn this in 1. I said, I did learn it in 1. It's him that didn't learn it. So, what do you mean? I'm like, this is the 3rd week in a row now. He spun himself off the front end of my car. 3 weeks in a row. I'm starting last because I don't have the handicap system, and I'm finishing 4th. We're doing pretty freaking good. So I'm certainly not blaming ourselves. Right?
So back in the day, Dale, you know, driving for Danny Andruck, Danny Andruck, son John used to build the engines.
Yeah,
I know John real well. He actually builds my race engine now today.
Yeah, so Danny owned the original car.
Yep, and it's a small world because McKenna's driver before you was the kid Carafas, and he was a mentor to me. You know how you talked about mentors. Joey was a mentor to me. But the one thing, another thing about you that I always heard, and this is like urban lore, and I got to find out if it's true. The story about you is you're at some racetrack racing on these motorcycles going 150 miles an hour, whatever speed you're going. Did you ever reach over and shut off someone else's bike? Because I heard that's true.
So I'm going to tell you how many of my buddies on the street still haven't found their key. That I've done it multiple times, and that when I first started racing, it was a class called production where you weren't allowed to do anything to them, so they still had the horns on. So I'd stop somebody and I'd beep the horn and freak them out. Those stories still pop up too.
All right. So,
yeah, but that's definitely true.
So I'm gonna go a little different direction. I have questions for you on. Have you ever thought about racing at like, have you ever thought about being in like in a Stafford SK modified or racing down to Stafford for anything local or anything like that around here? Because, I mean,
so
that's why I
can answer that.
Race.
I 100% wanted to do it. Probably 200% wanted to do it. But when I went from the motorcycle pro racing, the sponsors that I could get to come with me and transfer over wanted the pro race. So I couldn't go run pro stock SKs. They wanted the pro race. They wanted to do, Bush North Series. That was the series, right? That was the biggest series you could run in the Northeast. That's what they wanted to do. So that's what I did. But that took so much energy. I didn't have time to go waste 2 nights a week going to Stafford and playing because I was too busy working. But yes, I 100% wanted to do it.
Awesome.
Let's talk about the Bush North Series. You had 6 wins in what is now considered the ARCA Menards East Series, but any particular win really stand out to you? You got a good story for the listeners here on maybe one of those wins or any of the wins? I think that would probably be a good little story.
So in a short time span, which is probably 6 years, we were able to win most improved driver, most improved positions, 3rd in points. We're one of 7 people that went on a short track road course in Speedway because we've won Dover, Loudon, Lime Rock, short tracks, Beach Ridge. But the best story is I stopped to talk to my mother at Lime Rock, and we had set the pole and the track record. I stopped to talk to my mother in the morning, and I wasn't paying attention because I have ADD, right? So I wasn't paying attention. And I walk over to the driver's meeting, and I'm 1 minute late. And I'm thinking it's no big deal. And we go to leave from the driver's meeting, and the guy comes over and says, "Hey, you weren't here when I did roll call." I'm like, "Well, I was here before you started your first sentence." "Yeah, but you weren't here for roll call." I'm like, "Yeah, and?" He said, "Well, you start last." I'm like, "Dude, I was here before your first sentence." He said, "Whatever, you start last." I'm like, "Whatever, I don't care." So I started last, won the race. And then I got to say to him, "I told you I don't care."
I could be wrong, but I've also, one of our sponsors, I bartended at Emma's Pub and Pizza in Bridgewater for quite some time.
Yep.
I do believe that your spotter in the Bush North Series is a local guy to Bridgewater, and I believe he may or may not have been one of my regulars at Emma's. Could I be correct, or could I be wrong?
And what's his name? Do you want to say his name?
I want to say it's Bobby. It's been 3 years since I worked at Emma's.
So yes, there's a Bobby that did it. Ronnie Fortin with his father owned an auto body shop. Ronnie Fortin.
Yep.
So he was a spotter for a season. He actually got to be really good as time wore on. At first, he didn't want to chime in, but then he learned that not chiming in was worse than chiming in too much. So at the end, he was actually really good. His father owned the go-kart track in Plimpton, his father and my father, and that's where we used to go every Sunday and burn through 5 gallons of gas go-kart racing, which is how I learned how to drive.
No kidding.
So my question is for you on this one. Is you now I believe you're part-time this year in the ARCA Menards Series, correct?
Correct.
All right, so what do you have to say to these guys, these young guys that are coming up here with these, quote-unquote, I have to say, bad habits? Because the last couple of years, let's be honest, that ARCA was kind of, and they was not really what it is. I mean, it seemed like Daytona actually was the biggest field I've seen in a year or two. And now that a lot of these guys in trucks, they have bad habits. What is a veteran or someone like you got to say to these young guys? Be like, hey, calm down, and to show what they have to do for Xfinity and Cup.
So when you guys had mentioned Josh Berry earlier, Junior Motorsports, if you walk out my door and walk across the parking lot, their shop's on the other side of the parking lot.
That is so awesome.
So I go over there all the time, and I used to help Josh when he first showed up. And he'd complain about stuff that happened over the weekend, and I'm trying to say, it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault. And what I was trying to get in his head was, and Danica Patrick was the perfect example of this, which is, there's my space in your space. I'm not allowed in your space, you're not allowed in my space. Unless you're trying to make some fancy move, and I have to decide, are you going to let you finish this, or are I going to spin you out? Right? Other than that, it's your space, my space. And out of all the problems we want to talk about and all the problems you watch on TV, that's the number one issue. None of the kids have any respect for my space. They think it's theirs. And then I have to prove to them, no, it is not. It's my space. Well, they're bouncing off the fence. Right?
Interesting.
So Dale, let's expand on that a little bit. So part of the respect to the space, in my opinion, being a car owner and a driver, right? My opinion's always been, you start to respect the space when it's your stuff that you're driving, and you realize what it takes to prepare a car, not wreck a car, and finish with a car. And maybe the new generation doesn't understand and have that respect.
So, I mean, we could discuss this for hours, and half the listeners are going to be mad at us, right? Because they're new generation, old generation, right? I saw a perfect thread today, a meme on Facebook, it basically was a dad saying to his son, hey, you need to cut your hair. And the son says, hey, I want to get a car. Dad says, you need to cut your hair.
I saw that.
The son says,
yep.
Well, Jesus had long hair. Yeah. And Dad says, well, Jesus was walking.
Right. I saw that one. I actually saw that one.
That is good. That is good.
So you're talking about the difference between money and respect. That the kids, most kids, have no comprehension of money. There's nothing they learn in school anymore. They don't have team sports in school anymore. They don't have music in school anymore, so they have to either learn how to sing in some key that at least they don't stand out, but they can get by with, right? They have to adjust to just get by, which is fine because they're not a singer, right? Their objective is just get by. They don't learn any of those lessons anymore. And then they're hiding, I mean, we go on and on, right? They're hiding stuff that was in the past that, oh, you can't use that word. Well, there is no other word.
You know, part of that, just building on the money, is the hard work too. Like, they don't appreciate the hard work that has to go into all that.
But it's not even. It's sometimes it's not even work. I mean, I'm at the shop 7 days a week.
Yep.
Just because that's where I want to go.
Yeah, you
right?
love it.
Yeah, that's what I want to do, right? But sometimes it's not even the hard work. It's the fact that I put all this effort into making this car run up front, right? Somebody helped me with my Daytona car. We got to the racetrack and we struggled when we tested. We came home. I worked on it for a week and a half by myself, and I fixed all the details.
Right.
When we went back, and the guy helped set it up, so I have to give them credit. Right? They helped set it up. Chad Bryant is his name. But when we went back, I call it click, click, boom, right? We flip the switch, we push the button, and boom, the thing's running. We go out and drive it. We qualified 15th, went back to 19th. I drove it to 10th. We pitted because I was overheating, put the tape off, come back out. I drove it to 9th, from 28th to 9th, pitted again, got gas and fuel, drove it to 3rd, got spun out with 4 to go, which was partly my fault. Spun out, went all the way back to 28th again, and in 4 laps, finished 10th. If we'd gone one more lap, we would have finished 5th.
Wow.
And where I'm going with this is because I spent the time and I took the care to make that car go. It wasn't money that did it. It was time and care and knowledge between Chad and myself. We had the most dominant car there. We passed more cars than everybody else combined.
Certainly did.
So
Certainly
carrying that over to the kids, what the kids don't register is it's not that they're smashing the car and it costs somebody else money, even if it costs dad money. What they don't register is every time the car gets fixed, it goes backwards.
Yep.
So if you crash it 3 weeks in a row, and 3 weeks in a row it went backwards.
Yeah,
that means it's going to take you 3 weeks to start moving forwards again because you already lost 3 weeks of knowledge.
Absolutely.
Right?
Wow.
You didn't learn, and the crew chief didn't learn, and the tire guy didn't learn. Nobody learned a friggin' thing because you friggin' crashed the car. And now we have no idea where we're at. When the race is over, we can't post the car, right? We can't check the setup on Monday morning because it's friggin' crashed.
Yeah. So,
Right?
yeah, you're spot on. Spot on.
Spot on.
Right. That's the problem. It's not a money issue.
Yeah, it's those mistakes. So, I mean, we could have a whole nother segment. One thing we really didn't even get to tonight is you're the only multi-time champion in the Superbike Series. You got a quick story before we wrap it up with you? Because I've got a follow-up question to talk about the 2023 season. You got a quick Superbike
So
story?
you guys started with Crazy, right? Which I never look at it that way, although everybody else does.
They do.
I
They
look
sure
at
do.
it that I can go from a 0 to 100%. That when it goes green, I get somebody on every green. When caution comes out, my team starts clapping because they know we're going to move up positions when we go green again.
Awesome.
Right? We go from 0 to 100. There's no in
That's
between.
what's up.
So on that note, I'm at Laguna. This is a 1984 story. I'm at Laguna. It's my first year as pro Superbike racing, but there's no bigger class in the USA. I'm not in the number 1 class. And we qualify 4th, and I'm on a bike I built in Brockton in the garage at my mother's house. So we qualify 4th at this it's like running Winston Cup, right? And I get a bad start. I'm running the leaders down, and I run them down like 3 seconds in the first 5 laps, and I just get to them, and I do a line that they were doing through this turn, and like they were all doing it, and I was doing a different one, so I'm like, oh, whatever, I'll try it. Well, I go over there, and of course I have $300 suspension. They got $30,000 front forks on. So I end up crashing. And I break my finger, wrapped around the side of my hand. I grind both bones and the joint out. So I go to the hospital, and the doctor's looking at it, and he says, well, there's really nothing left. There's no joints, no bones. We're just starting to work on these plastic joints. 4 or 5 operations, we could maybe fix it. I'm like, what? I'm in the middle of the race season. I ain't got time for 4 or 5 operations. He says, well, we can pin it and give you a position. I'm like, well, that's dumb. I work on stuff. It's just going to be in the way. He says, well, it's not like it's your thumb. We can just cut it off. And, we'll sew it up, and so be it. And I'm like, okay, we'll break out the Ginsu.
Amazing.
And they friggin' cut it off, took a giant toenail clipper, cut the bone, sewed it up, and I had nothing, and I raced the next day.
Unbelievable.
I raced until I almost blacked out and pitted.
Wow. Unbelievable. That's
But
crazy.
that's determination, right?
Absolutely.
It's not, there's no tomorrow, there's no maybe, there's no kind of woulda, shoulda. It's do it or go home.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
So, last question for you is we got to wrap and head to break. Seems like you are going to do a couple of truck races this season. What's on the 2023 season schedule for you?
So at the moment, sponsors want to play. Economy's good. We're going to run Circuit of the Americas in Texas in the truck in 2 weeks. And then we get 2 months off, and then we go Portland, Oregon, Sonoma, California for the ARCA road races. Then we come back and run Mid-Ohio, Watkins Glen, ARCA road races. And then we're going to run 2 dirt shows, the Coyne, Illinois, and Springfield ARCA race in the dirt, which I haven't done before.
Awesome.
Very cool. So
that's my schedule.
Cool. Maybe Chad and I have been talking about going back to Watkins Glen this year. Maybe we'll see her up there for the Glen.
If you want to come, if you show up and you bring a decal, I will run the show on the car, but I'll only do it if you show up.
Well, I think we have a game plan now for August. Then Watkins Glen it is.
I hope I'm invited too, Dale.
Yeah, Paul, we'll talk. I think that's a game plan.
Hey, I want to get one quick thing in. If people go on my Facebook page, Dale Quarterley, go on my Facebook page. There's a link there to my girlfriend's walking for cancer.
Okay.
And if you chime in, whoever donates money, they're going to put their name on the truck at CODA.
Okay. Well, I'll share that on our page, and we'll get the word out there for sure.
All right.
All right. Dale Quarterley,
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you so much, and the invite's always open. We'll have you back on for sure. So
have fun eating my Chinese food.
There we go.
Thank you, Dale.
Dale Quarterley, our guest right here on Miles on Motorsport.